Evelyn sat on the porch of their immaculate home, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows over the quiet suburban street. The world around her seemed alive with the chatter of neighbors and the sounds of children playing, but inside, Evelyn felt like a spectator to it all. Her marriage to Ben, once full of passion and promise, had transformed into something unrecognizable. He was always working late, consumed by his career, while Evelyn was left to manage their home, their life, and her own growing loneliness. She had tried to ignore it, telling herself it was just a phase, that things would get better, but each day spent waiting for him to come home felt like an eternity. Her heart ached with a yearning she couldn't shake, a longing for connection, for the spark they once had. She missed the man she had fallen in love with, but she also missed herself. The woman who had dreams, aspirations, and the energy to pursue them. But now, she felt lost in the endless routine of chores and expectations. She could feel the weight of it all pressing down on her, and for the first time in a long time, she wondered if there was more to life than this. She just didn't know how to find it. As Evelyn gazed out the window, the quiet hum of the suburban neighborhood seemed to mock her restlessness. She had built a life she once thought would bring her happiness, married to Ben, living in a beautiful home, and surrounded by the comforts of a predictable routine. But now, everything felt hollow. The dreams and adventures that had once filled her heart with excitement seemed distant, replaced by the monotonous demands of everyday life. Ben was consumed by work, and though he provided for them, Evelyn felt more alone than ever. He no longer seemed to notice her, not in the way he once had. She missed the intimacy, the deep conversations, the late-night laughter. But more than that, she missed herself. Somewhere along the way, she had buried her own aspirations, her own sense of identity, in an attempt to fulfill the roles expected of her as a wife and a homemaker. The loneliness crept in, subtle at first, but soon it began to consume her. It wasn't just the silence of the house that bothered her, it was the emptiness inside. Evelyn longed for something more, something that could reignite the spark she had once felt in her marriage, but also for something that could help her rediscover the woman she used to be. She had dreams of traveling, capturing moments with her camera, and embracing a sense of freedom. But the weight of guilt and the fear of disrupting her life with Ben kept her trapped in this unspoken limbo. One warm summer afternoon, Evelyn found herself in the garden, weeding the flower beds in a futile attempt to keep busy. The sun beat down on her, but her thoughts were elsewhere, on a growing restlessness she could no longer ignore. Just as she reached for another clump of weeds, a voice called out from behind her. It was Liam, the neighbor's son, home for the summer. His casual tone and easy smile made Evelyn's pulse quicken, and for the first time in weeks, she felt something stir within her. Liam had grown from the playful kid she remembered into a confident young man with an infectious energy that seemed to breathe life into everything around him. As he knelt beside her to help, their conversation flowed effortlessly. They talked about everything and nothing, his college experiences, her photography, the books they were reading. With each word, Evelyn felt herself loosening, like a knot inside her was slowly starting to untangle. Liam's presence was comforting in a way that was almost disorienting. He listened to her, truly listened, and for the first time in a long while, Evelyn didn't feel invisible. She found herself laughing freely, her worries forgotten, if only for a moment. In the days that followed, their interactions deepened. Liam's visits, always casual at first, soon became more frequent. His attention, his understanding, and the way he made her feel seen and alive sparked something in Evelyn, an undeniable connection that both thrilled and terrified her. But it also brought her to a crossroads, torn between loyalty to her husband and a temptation she never expected to encounter. As the days grew warmer, Evelyn couldn't shake the feeling that something inside her was awakening. She had tried to ignore it, tried to bury it beneath her responsibilities as a wife and mother, but it was there, impossible to ignore. It had started with casual conversations, small exchanges with Liam that seemed harmless enough. But the tension between them grew undeniable. One evening, when Ben was away on another work trip, Liam stopped by to help her with some yard work. The air was thick with unspoken words, and the late afternoon sun seemed to glow even brighter as their paths crossed in the garden. Liam, ever the gentleman, offered to take a few photographs of her with the new camera she had recently acquired, knowing how much she had once loved photography. As they worked together, their playful banter made Evelyn forget, for a while, the heaviness in her chest. There was a lightness in Liam's presence, a joy that hadn't been a part of her life in years. But when the sun began to dip below the horizon, their laughter faded, and there it was, an undeniable chemistry. Evelyn could feel his eyes on her, and without thinking, she stepped closer. Their lips met in a kiss that was both a surrender and a defiance. It was a stolen moment, one that both excited and terrified her. As she pulled away, a flood of guilt washed over her, but the feeling of being wanted, truly seen, left her breathless, torn between her past and an uncertain future. As the weeks passed, Evelyn's internal battle grew more intense. The guilt of her kiss with Liam lingered like a shadow, following her through every moment of her day. She couldn't stop replaying the way he looked at her, the way his hand had brushed against hers, the fire in his kiss. Her marriage to Ben, once built on love and shared dreams, now seemed distant and hollow in comparison. Ben, absorbed in his work and often away on business, hadn't noticed the subtle shift in her demeanor, but Evelyn felt it. The silence that hung between them at night felt louder than any argument they'd ever had. She was left with a quiet desperation, unable to talk to him about what she felt, and unable to ignore the undeniable pull she had toward Liam. Every interaction with Liam felt like a breath of fresh air, a reminder of who she had been before responsibilities and years of monotony clouded her sense of self. He made her feel alive again, as though the excitement of life was still within reach. Yet the more she saw him, the more she realized the truth: she couldn't continue living a double life. The thrill of their secret meetings, their stolen moments, began to take its toll on Evelyn. She knew that eventually, she would have to choose, and the weight of that decision pressed heavily on her heart. She couldn't help but wonder, was the love she shared with Ben worth saving, or was she too far gone, lost in the arms of a new intoxicating connection? As autumn arrived, so did the inevitable confrontation Evelyn had been avoiding. The tension between her and Ben was palpable, hanging over their home like a storm cloud. Every conversation felt like a performance, an attempt to hold on to the remnants of something that once felt so real. But no matter how much she tried to pretend, Evelyn knew the truth: her heart was divided. The moments with Liam had stirred something deep inside her, something she hadn't felt in years. Every glance, every touch, made her question everything about her marriage. One chilly evening, after another silent dinner with Ben, Evelyn could no longer ignore the growing distance between them. The cracks in their relationship were widening, and she could feel it, suffocating her. Ben, seemingly unaware of her inner turmoil, began to speak about plans for the future, a future she no longer saw the same way. His words, once comforting, now felt like a weight, a reminder of everything that had slipped through her fingers. Evelyn was at a breaking point. The guilt of her affair with Liam had reached its peak, but so had the desire for something more, something real, something that made her feel alive again. As Ben talked about their next vacation, Evelyn felt a pang of longing for the excitement that Liam brought into her life. But deep down, she knew she couldn't continue living in this limbo. It was time to face the truth, no matter how painful it might be. The decision to face the truth weighed heavily on Evelyn as the days passed, each one blending into the next with the same monotony. Her life had become a series of calculated moments, avoiding the reality she could no longer ignore. It wasn't just the affair with Liam that haunted her, but the overwhelming sense of regret for letting things deteriorate with Ben. She couldn't keep pretending that everything was fine, that the spark of their love was still there when, in truth, it had long faded. The deep, persistent ache of loneliness, even while living under the same roof as Ben, was consuming her. One night, as the chill of the evening settled in, Evelyn found herself alone in the living room, staring blankly at the flickering light of the fireplace. Her thoughts swirled around Liam's presence in her life, how he had made her feel seen, appreciated, and alive again. The chemistry they shared was undeniable, but Evelyn knew it came with consequences. She could feel the guilt gnawing at her, but she couldn't ignore the truth any longer: her connection with Liam was real. More real than the comfortable yet suffocating routine she had settled into with Ben. With each passing hour, Evelyn's internal conflict grew. She had to make a choice: continue to live the lie or finally confront Ben and lay bare the truth of her heart. It was a choice that would change everything, but the fear of losing herself, of never finding the joy she once had, pushed her forward. As Evelyn navigated the days following her confession, the tension between her and Ben grew palpable. Every conversation felt strained, each word a reminder of the chasm that now separated them. Ben, who once filled their home with warmth and laughter, had become a shadow of himself, distant and consumed by the weight of her betrayal. Evelyn couldn't help but feel the sting of his hurt every time he looked at her. The man she once knew so well was now a stranger, his eyes reflecting disappointment and confusion, while hers mirrored the anguish of the consequences she'd set in motion. Liam, on the other hand, had become both a comfort and a source of turmoil. His presence in her life, once a balm to her broken spirit, now felt like a precarious balancing act. Evelyn knew she couldn't keep hiding in the space he offered. It was easy to find solace in their stolen moments, in the way he made her feel seen, but she also knew that their connection, while real, could never come without a price. The nights grew longer as she lay awake, her heart racing with the weight of her decisions. Each thought of Liam sparked an aching longing, but it was Ben's quiet sadness that filled her mind when the lights went out. The future she once envisioned, full of simplicity and love, had become a maze of shattered trust and broken dreams. Evelyn knew that the path ahead would demand more than just honesty, it would demand a decision that could tear her world apart. As autumn faded into winter, Evelyn found herself at a crossroads, torn between the life she had built with Ben and the intoxicating connection she shared with Liam. The weight of her choices felt heavier each passing day, and she couldn't escape the growing sense of restlessness that gnawed at her. Every moment with Ben felt like a reminder of the quiet sorrow between them, the intimacy they once shared now replaced with uncertainty. But with Liam, there was a spark, a sense of adventure, of possibility, that she hadn't felt in years. His presence made her feel alive in a way she thought she had lost forever. Yet, with every stolen kiss, every secret meeting, Evelyn felt herself sinking deeper into a web of guilt. She couldn't ignore the love she still had for Ben, nor the life they had built together. But as the days went by, she realized that her desire for something more, a life filled with excitement and passion, was a yearning she couldn't easily silence. The tension in her marriage reached a boiling point one evening when Ben, sensing the change in her, confronted her. His voice was quiet but firm, full of raw emotion. "What's going on, Evelyn? We're drifting apart, and I need to know if you still want this. If you still want us." Evelyn's heart pounded as the weight of her secret threatened to spill over. She could feel the end of something precious looming, but could she face the truth of what she really needed, even if it meant losing everything? The day Evelyn had been dreading arrived sooner than expected. The tension between her and Ben had reached its peak, and there was no more avoiding the conversation that could tear everything apart. She had tried to bury her feelings, hoping the storm would pass, but the guilt had become unbearable. As they sat across from each other at the dinner table, Ben's once comforting presence now felt like a reminder of the chasm that had grown between them. The air was thick with unspoken words, but his eyes, usually filled with warmth, now held a quiet plea.
Evelyn. Bens voice brok se lengse. Es wirds hanging in ses beis bed wen sem like a fragile triad.
"I've been trying to understand. You've been so distant lately. Is there someone else?" Evelyn's breath caught in her throat. The question she had feared was finally asked, and she knew there was no more hiding the truth. She had loved Ben, she still loved him, but the feelings she had for Liam were undeniable too. The whirlwind of emotions that had swept her off her feet left her feeling lost, unable to reconcile the two halves of her heart. "I don't know what to say," Evelyn whispered, her voice trembling. "I've made a mistake.
I never wanted to hurt you."
The weight of her confession sank in as Ben's face crumbled, the hurt in his eyes unmistakable. Evelyn's heart shattered, realizing that her need for something more had cost her the love she once thought was unshakable. The weeks following Evelyn's confession were a blur of emotions, regret, and longing. She had expected things to change the moment she told Ben the truth, but the reality of it all was far more complicated. Ben, though hurt, had insisted they try and rebuild their marriage. But how could they, when Evelyn felt so torn? The guilt of betraying Ben and the exhilaration of her affair with Liam clashed violently in her heart. Every attempt at normalcy felt like a lie, every conversation with Ben layered with unspoken tension. Liam, on the other hand, was becoming more insistent. He could sense the conflict in Evelyn, and his desire for her grew stronger by the day. His calls and texts became more frequent, each message a reminder of the pull between them. But Evelyn knew she couldn't live in this perpetual limbo. The thrill of their secret meetings had faded, replaced by a gnawing uncertainty about what she truly wanted. One evening, as she stood in front of her bedroom mirror, Evelyn realized something crucial. She had been looking for answers outside of herself when the truth had always been within. She loved Ben, his kindness, his loyalty, and the life they had built together. But she also needed to rediscover her own identity, separate from her marriage and the affair. She couldn't keep running from her own heart. It was time to make a decision, not just for Ben or Liam, but for herself. She had to choose the path that would bring her peace, whatever the cost. In today's fast-paced world, it's easy to lose ourselves in the whirlwind of relationships, work, and external pressures. Like Evelyn, many people find themselves caught in the tension between what they have and what they think they need. The key is self-reflection. Take a moment to understand your true desires and values, and make decisions that align with your authentic self. Life is not about avoiding conflict or escaping difficult situations, it's about facing them with honesty and courage. Whether in a relationship or at work, choosing authenticity and self-awareness will ultimately bring you peace and clarity.